All right. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. First of all, just to be certain this whole thing works, can everybody just confirm they can hear me perfectly well? Just use the chat window. Panelists, can you confirm you can all hear me well, please? Okay. All right. Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Our attendees also say they can hear us. Okay. All right. So, going to get this started now. So once again, good evening. Good evening, everybody. You're all welcome. Today, what we intend to present to you in this webinar is digitalization and digital transformation in the oil and gas sector. My name is Kola Kupuni. I'm a director of NEK Consultants in London, UK. Next slide. I guess the first question I probably need to answer, which I'm sure a lot of you are already asking, is who are these guys? What are they? So I'm going to answer the question right now. So what we are, or we intend to be, is a knowledge sharing platform, an informal platform for discussions on design, procurement, construction, integrity management, and costing across the renewable energy and oil and gas industry, with primary focus on Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. As far as member selection is concerned, it's pretty much straightforward. Oil and gas engineers and researchers, GIS professionals, engineering students, non-profit organizations, and other stakeholders. For the time being, we're limiting membership to Nigerians and other nationalities from Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, next slide. Also, I guess coming in, a lot of you might have already asked yourselves, what are these guys talking about when they say digitalization and digital transformation? To be honest, a lot of us in the industry have been hearing a lot of these buzzwords over the last couple of years. And just in this one slide, I hope to present to you what we think it is anyways. By the way, I guess I should just mention this. The whole premise of this is not to say we're telling you how it's going to be done or how it should be. It's a knowledge sharing platform. We all want to come together for the benefit of all trying to learn at the same time. Okay, next slide. So if you Google digital transformation, you find a host of definitions. So here is the definition, and this definition is courtesy Stonebridge Consulting in Denver, US. My personal version is digital transformation is the application of information technologies to create or alter business processes, culture, and user experiences to drive greater profitability, efficiency, and transparency. You will notice I put an underline under the word culture, and I guess that speaks for itself. That's where we're here today. We need to build the culture. So if you've joined this webinar, congratulations, you've taken the first step towards digitalization and digital transformation. Next slide. So in front of you here is a screen grab from a Deloitte article, and the primary focus of this article is winning in African oil and gas industry, with primary focus on Sub-Saharan Africa. So I'll just read the opening statements real quick. In Africa, oil and gas has historically been a primary driver for economic growth. Despite an inconsistent GDP growth in the past, the potential of the country's oil and gas sector cannot be overlooked. Recent oil and gas discoveries, coupled with regulatory changes and fast-growing energy demand from expanding local consumer markets, offer significant opportunities across the continent. So, in summary, this is an outlook presented to multinationals who are considering to invest and operate in Africa. And the summary or the crux of this gist is, these are the things that need to be done, or these are the suggestions of what needs to be done to be able to capitalize on this new frontier. Investing in local partnerships, capitalizing on local market knowledge, understanding local customs and business culture, developing local content and localization strategies, creating value beyond compliance, portfolio management, and the reason why we're all here today, embracing digitalization. And last but not least, identifying risk and planning for uncertainties. By the way, this article is free. It's available on any search engine of choice. The reference for that is on the right-hand corner of your screen right there. Next slide. So we've been talking about digitalization and digital transformation, and here's just a rough breakdown of what we think it is and how we play a part in this whole process as far as this platform is concerned. So the first step towards digitalization is data gathering. Data gathering in this context for this platform is knowledge share. We need to come together, pool our resources together, talk about what we know or what we think we know, gather that data. Now, the next step, we need to analyze that data. All that information, all this stuff we're putting together, we need to analyze it. When we analyze it, we need to store it, we need to secure it, and we need to convert that data into intelligence. And the hope, and I say hope, is we're able to leverage on this intelligence to be able to achieve the following outcomes. Number one, and this is one that's closest to me personally, knowledge share, professional and personal improvement and development. Another one is giving back, and I will speak on this a bit. So imagine, I believe a lot of us here have at least decades or years skin in the game as far as oil and gas is concerned. Now, take yourself back to that time when you were a student in university trying to decide on your future, and you want this future was oil and gas. You were preparing for your dissertation or something along those lines. Now, wouldn't it have been great to be a fly on the wall, to be able to listen and be part of a movement of engineers with experience in the industry who have a common goal of how to move the industry forward in these pivotal times that we find ourselves? Also, high on our agenda is to effect change. The first on that list is standardization. Now, I mentioned before that the primary focus here is Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. So when we say standardization, the idea is not to critique or to object to. However, we need to ask some very fundamental questions. First, do we have standards? Yes. Okay, very good. One check. Are these standards up to date? Yes. Okay, good. Second check. Are these standards aligned with modern day technology? Yes. All right, also very good. However, here comes the important bit. Is that information, or are those standards in digital format? Yes. Okay. Where? Where is that information? Now, the information needs to be easily accessible so that engineers like ourselves can draw on all that wealth of experience to better deliver cost-effective solutions. Now, moving on, culture, we're here, we talked about culture before, policy and legislation. Now, these might be Hail Marys, but who knows? You just never know. But what I do believe is the push needs to come from within. These discussions have already been taking place at the highest levels, digitalization, digital transformation. We as engineers are equal stakeholders in this industry, and we need to start making sure we are part of the process to be able to influence policy and legislation. Readiness for energy futures. Now, I'm not going to expand on energy futures. We have a consultant who has a wealth of experience in the industry, in the consultancy field, and he's going to speak on energy futures. as part of this webinar. Readiness for acquisition. Now, this is a funny one because through this process, we've had questions from people we've spoken to, and very valid questions. And some of those questions border on, are there any economic benefits from this? And believe me, these questions are indeed quite valid. And what I'll say is this. Somewhere in the United States, a couple of years ago, a couple of college guys or university guys got together to establish a platform where they could just use to share information within each other or just communicate to one another. We all know where that story is currently right now. I'm not saying that is where we're going to, but we're putting our foot forward, 10 toes in the sand, as they say. Next slide. Okay, now that is the end of the first presentation. One of our other panelists, Debola, is going to take over from here, and he's going to present his slide. Now, for the guys in attendance, a lot of these platforms are new to a lot of us, so if there's any lag or delay, just please hang in, all right? We appreciate you guys being here. Okay, Debola.
Thanks, Ola. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Great, thank you. South Africa, Middle East, the UK, and my particular focus has been on running existing facilities and trying to improve how they run. I've also had some experience with starting up of new facilities as well as commissioning them. My current role deals with developing new fields, new concepts, new developments with a focus on how we operate them for the future. So when we started talking about digitalization, this is something that, well, it's not only something I'm trying to learn more about, it's kind of critical or very, very important to what I'm trying to do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to try and just talk you through three things in general. Kola's already covered some of it already. I'm going to talk about why digitalization. I'm going to talk about a few of the emerging trends as I see them. Some of them shouldn't be a surprise to you. And thirdly, I'm going to leave a few reflections on what I think we should be doing as individual engineers and what it potentially could mean for Nigeria. So that's a quick summary of what the first slide that I'm going to talk to. So bear with me if it doesn't come up yet, but it should do so shortly. So why is digitalization so important, and why is it such a subject of interest? I think the first reason I'd say is, as an industry in general, the oil and gas industry is experiencing lots of shifts in terms of supply and demand trends. You're having things like the shale revolution in the US, where new technology is coming in, horizontal drilling, hydraulic fracturing, etc., which is bringing on new sources of energy. You're having oil and gas being developed or discovered in new countries. You've got Guyana in the South America, Caribbean area. You've got new countries like Senegal, Mauritania in Africa, and Mozambique bringing in new supply. So previously we had very established producers who kind of controlled everything via OPEC. You're getting lots of new supply coming into the market. That's one thing. Secondly, you've got the increased efficiency of renewables and improvements in their efficiency and costs coming down rapidly, which is changing the mix of energy sources coming in. And finally, you've got the trend of where things are actually coming from. So a lot of the drivers used to be the big OPEC countries, but that driver is now switching to different regions across the world. So that's kind of the shifting supply side. If we switch over to the demand side, the demand is also changing as well. There's changes in terms of where future energy demand is coming from compared to where it's come from previously. So previously, it used to be the developed countries of, let's say, the Northern Hemisphere, so US, Europe, and some of Asia, driving a lot of energy use. But if you look at what current predictions are saying over the next 20 to 30 years, over 90% of new energy growth is going to come from different regions. So the demand profile as well is changing. And then adding on top of that, you have changes due to regulation and the increasing impact of climate change, which is also impacting how much of demand there is for oil and gas products. So when you add up changes on the supply side and on the demand side, the industry has to change in order to survive and to thrive in this changing environment. So the second point I was going to talk about was value. So why digitalization? So yes, the market's changing, but potentially if you think about many different ways you could respond to that challenge. So why would you go with digitalization? And one of the key reasons is the value that you could potentially generate. So there was a study conducted by the World Economic Forum a couple of years ago, which predicted that for oil and gas companies, there's an opportunity to realize up to $1 trillion of value by embracing digitalization, $1 trillion. And then if you think about wider society, the estimates at that time were on the order of $500 to $600 billion of value to the external society or stakeholders from embracing digitalization. So I'll leave the oil industry aspect a bit, and I'll come to that in a moment. But for society, you're talking about things like lower costs, increased efficiency, and lowering the impact on the environment. So if you try and put a monetary value on that, just from digitalization, you're looking at those types of potential value changes. And when you're trying to respond to shifting supply and demand trends, digitalization is a big enabler to enable you to do that and to give you the tools and the efficiency improvements to enable you to make those changes that need to happen. Next slide. So I'll carry on speaking, and hopefully that change will come through soon enough. So the second piece I was going to talk about were what do I see as a few of the key trends in digitalization, which kind of we need to be aware of. So one of them I'll talk about is looking at things on a life cycle basis. So if you look at traditional oil and gas, how projects progress through the cycle, you have someone who does a discovery at the start, and then you start off a design process to design the facility, it comes into operation, it gets maintained, and eventually gets decommissioned. And typically in every step of that cycle, what you typically have is different bodies or different groups involved in that process, and each of them doing their own little bit separately or independent to some extent from the others. And by running things in that mode, what happens is each time you kind of hand over from one step to the next, there's some loss of information, data, and value, because all the information that goes into the design doesn't always necessarily make it into the hands, if you like, of those who operate it, or those who maintain it, or those who decommission it. So one of the key trends is bringing all of that information together and not working in the silos that used to exist previously. So bringing everything together such that you don't have these lags that occur as you move from stage to stage, but instead you have a far more integrated process where design information, for example, is readily available to you in the operate and maintain phase, such that you can make quick decisions, or if you want to optimize or increase production without having to go into a lot of additional spend, for example. So I've got a personal anecdote kind of in that space, which I'll talk to later on. The next point I was going to talk about was remote operations. So currently, a lot of facilities or facilities in general are operated with a lot of personnel physically located at the oil and gas producing facility. So imagine your oil platform or your facility in the middle of the desert or your onshore plant. You have quite a number of people physically located there involved in the day-to-day production of oil and gas. One of the big trends which is emerging and has been emerging for a few years now is a push towards remote operations. By remote operations, I mean a team sitting in an office somewhere operating a facility which is based out, say, in 2,000 meters of water in the Atlantic Ocean, right? And there are no personnel, no people on that platform, and everything is operated remotely. And the only time you have people going there is on a very infrequent basis to carry out, for example, critical maintenance and then returning. So for the most of the lifespan of that facility, it operates without people. So clearly, you can start to think about some of the value gains there. You don't have as many staff operating there. A lot of the information is coming back to the remote centers in the office through really robust data networks, etc. And if you can get to that point, you can take out a lot of the operating costs that go into these facilities and actually bring down the cost of operations. So the next point I'll talk about is automation, AI, and cybersecurity. And it kind of links back to the previous point. So if you want to be able to operate your facilities remotely without having people there, those data networks that you're using have to be very secure. They have to be secure enough that no one else is going to intercept that information and cause any unwanted actions to occur in your facilities, especially with the high risk that you could potentially have, or high risk events you could potentially have with oil and gas facilities. And in order to facilitate things like remote operations, a big aspect of that is automation. So a lot of the things you would normally have had individuals doing, a lot of those tasks are getting automated, such that instead of having an operator, for example, go out and take pressure and temperature readings on a facility, you get a lot of that data automatically sent back using smart sensors and the like. The next piece I was going to talk about was AI, or artificial intelligence, which we all hear a lot about and seems to be taking the world by storm. But what does that really mean, or what could that mean in an oil and gas environment? So one example I will give is, imagine a process which involves drilling wells, operating a facility, and then exporting that. The way things typically work, you would have various teams responsible for those three areas. They'd work individually, bring that information together, and then over a period of time, usually weeks, months, come up with options on how to optimize and improve that entire chain. Now, if you bring in a way of bringing together all those various aspects I talked about, so the wells, the facilities, the flow lines, bring them all into a system which receives data from all those various aspects and has information in it on how it can optimize those various decisions. There are examples where that decision-making process has gone down from a period of 2 to 3 months to about less than a week. So one, you're saving time. 2, you're making fewer errors because you're using a lot of the data and you're learning as you go along. And 3, you're freeing up your people not to do the laborious tasks, and they can actually focus on what the actual value creating aspect of the task is. And the final point is around partnerships. Now, going back to my point around lifecycle and design, operate, maintain, decommission, etc. Typically, you have different companies or different groups in the industry. You have vendors, you have design houses, you have operators, etc. You have maintenance organizations, all doing their thing individually and typically working on a customer and vendor basis. So everybody is either buying or selling something from the other, and they, in many cases, don't see each other as partners. Now, when we talk about digitalization, you need to be in a position where a lot of that siloed type of thinking goes away and companies begin to work as partnerships across the entire chain for you to really realize the value. And that's what people are learning now is you cannot deliver the benefits of some of the things I've talked about if you don't build partnerships. And the real reason is that knowledge or that ability to develop new things doesn't reside in one individual company. It doesn't, and you will not be able to do everything in-house. So if you can't, you need to form partnerships with other organizations in order to share that knowledge and to have a common benefit from it for any improvements or efficiencies that you gain. So if it's only for taking my perspective as an operator, so if as an operator, all I gain is any efficiency improvement I gain from getting things better done to me, there's less of an incentive from a design company, for example, to collaborate in a certain way. But if you can find a way to come up with a partnership where both sides benefit, then you're more likely to realize some of these benefits of digitalization. And we're beginning to see a lot of that happening in the industry now. Granted, still early days, but there's many cases where companies are coming together to design joint products and then getting the efficiency improvement out of it and then beginning to share that with the wider industry. So final I was going to talk about was just giving you a bit more meat on the bones, if you like, around some of these digital initiatives. So I've talked about this whole life cycle piece, and on the screen there you can see a theme around digital asset and life cycle management, and that connects you into increased automation, increased analytics and modeling, and the connected worker. So that's a worker who has access to a lot of the information real time. He has potentially a mobile device. He has, virtual reality glasses, for example, that he can receive a lot of information up front. Analytics, you're talking about being able to predict what's going to happen prior to it happening by analyzing the data and giving insights to the people at the front line. So that was the example I was going to talk to you very briefly. So I remember whatever it was, 5-6 years ago, when I worked on a relatively old platform. You have the people who work in the control room operators, who are usually the most knowledgeable people on the facility because they operate the process. They know if you change this parameter, if you open this valve or increase this temperature, this is the effect you get. So a lot of that time, I spent quite a bit of time understanding how they responded to events and what they thought was the appropriate response to make in many instances. So what I did was I took some of that information and then I went to build some models, if you like, or some trends to try and look at how those actions made differences to the process. So using that information, I was able to identify additional insights which they could not see because of how close they were to the work. And I was able to come up with a few suggestions on how to improve the operations of the plant, increase production, etc. But that was like a manual process. So I had to go speak to the guys, go and build my own simple models, if you like, and then kind of come up with insights on that. So when we talk about doing it on this scale using digitalization, we're talking about advanced analytics, systems that collect data from multiple sources independently and systems that have got the ability to learn from the data coming in, and then are able to give you insights, which you can then actually test in your facilities to improve production. So a lot of that happening at the moment as well. So the second point is a bit around what I was talking about in terms of partnerships. So here it's called circular collaborative ecosystem, which is around different companies coming together to work together to share their information and be transparent around how they work. And doing that helps you to realize value because you're working across the entire ecosystem and not in silos. There's a great example in the North Sea in the UK of how some of that's actually happening. There is a company, for example, that manages spares or some spares for a whole bunch of different platforms run by different operators. So that central repository of spares is then available to all those platforms to source from and to get their materials from, which brings down the cost for individual facilities. So that's a way you can kind of apply that, which is currently happening. So after all I've said, if I was going to say what were my own takeaways for an individual, all my reflections as an individual, I think one thing we need to be thinking about is what aspect of your daily work do you actually add the most value, and what aspect of that can be automated. So automation, digitalization will result in some of the things that we do being reduced, and we need to be focusing on those aspects of our skills that can't be automated and that really brings the value. So getting that insight, acting on the insight, understanding risk, things like that is where we really need to focus. Aspects of the task which are mechanical, which can be easily automated, we kind of need to be moving away from them in the sense of not prioritizing them and trying to better develop our skills in areas where they can't as easily be automated. And if I think about Nigeria as a whole, now when I go back to my initial point around different supply locations are coming up, different countries are trying to make themselves more competitive in the oil and gas space. If we don't move to make ourselves more competitive, there will be a time when the world will need less oil than it needs now. And the countries that will survive producing oil are the ones that can do it cheapest, most efficiently, and safely. And a number of all these initiatives are there to actually give us savings and keep the operations more efficient. And if we're able to do that, we will be able to position ourselves as a country and Sub-Saharan Africa as a whole to remain competitive. So thanks for listening to my presentation. That's all I had to share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Debola. Thank you for that. For anybody just joining us right now, welcome aboard. Please stay with us. This journey is still continuing. The maximum duration for this is 2 hours, so we promise by 8 p.m. we'll have rounded up. So next person coming up will be Aristo. Aristo, you ready to go?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
All right. Yes, we can. So, all right, I'll just hand over to you now. So please continue.
Just okay. Okay. So, good evening all. Today I'll be focusing on this aspect of HVAC engineering designs and how it relates to digital transformation. It's a privilege to be here, and I'll start right away. Now, this one we'll go through very quickly to address our needs. So we look at how the impact of this going on. Now, HVAC forms part of the safety service for the petroleum and natural gas installations. And these safety goals can be achieved if you have a well-designed, installed, commissioned, and maintained HVAC system, as quoted. Now, let's look at some definitions, which are really basic: heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. And basically what we do here is to use the ventilation air, okay, to remove heat, odors, flammable gases in conditioned spaces. Pressurization is used also to prevent the ingress of flammable gases in every oil and gas facility. And just to show the impact again of these explosive gases, I have these pictures extracted from some documents. Moving forward, this is some 3D models of the Mistras FPSO and the Agbami FPSO, which are currently producing in Nigerian waters. And the accommodation facilities are just there, clearly shown in white. And so just a section just to see the amount of space, amount of the different levels of installation of the environments where we're controlling the cooling and the protection of the enclosures. Now, HVAC design philosophies. Now, basically what we have here is to ensure that we control the release of these flammable gases. And the objective here is to dilute and remove this resulting gas clouds. And the intention here is to ensure that we protect the facility and the investment of people, and above all, the lives that are involved. The second philosophy here, of design philosophy, is to prevent the spread of fire, limiting its spread, and the supply of air to fire, and reduce the movement of gas across the entire facility, therefore impeding emergency responses. Depending again on the fire rating of each of the bulkheads and the decks, we ensure that we give room and time for the personnel occupation to be saved as they run through the process of safety. Now, in the life cycle of the HVAC system, we need to ensure when we look at it, when we look at the concepts, we need to be sure that we understand the hazards that's involved and put some design basis, produce the design. Different drawings are expected, construction, bring the facility into life, then commission, then operate to see if it meets the standard requirements. Enhance operation as the life goes on, and when the life is over, we abandon facility as the case may require. Now, digital transformation, just as Debola has spoken quite a bit about it, the HVAC industry has embraced this. The era has dawned for the field. And this transformation shifts from the simple systems to a complex but more efficient scheme. Just to give us a brief comparison to the conventional controls that we have on the left-hand side, and to that which is automated using the microchip, the computers, as the case may be. So the digital control uses microchips that perform control logic functions instead of the conventional components, such as the thermostats, as the case may be. Now, we need to control the environment, protect personal lives, and ensure that the system operates effectively. And of course, control smoke emissions, as the case may be. So we can see a computer there and the hull of a floating production vessel, just a schematic for it. You can see the air conditioning system, the air handling unit over there at this point here. And so the aim here is to ensure that we ventilate to provide security, take away all the smoke, take away all the heat, and also ensure that the system runs efficiently just as we want it. So that transformation has a way of giving us the precision that's required so that when there's an ingress of these flammable gases from the air handling unit, you find out that the fire gas or the fire gas dampers will shut off based on the trigger. Now, the promptness of this is controlled by the building automation system. This is just a simple galley just to help us, just to try to buttress the point better. Now, the air handling unit is what you see on the top left hand here, and the duct system running around within the galley. And now you can see with the fumes that come up from the range of the stoves, these are separately extracted and pushed out. That's a design philosophy on its own. And so all of this works in a way that lives are secured, in a way that the cost, the investments, the initial investments are preserved with low operational expenses going forward. So this transformation, digital transformation, helps in saving energy, because when people are not in operation at certain points, the system simply shuts down, awaiting any trigger, and this gives us that help. Just a simple schematic. On the left-hand side, we see air handling the air intake from the outside coming in, and goes out with the different instrumentations, which are interlocked with some form of conversion from the analog into the digital, direct digital conversion as may be required to help us meet this efficiency. Building management systems. We have a lot of advantage from here we can glean from, such as produce goal-oriented systems. That is, our systems will be precise in meeting the needs of every enclosure, of every environment. Secondly, we have better data handling capabilities with this digital transformation. Above all, we also have the better control using the Internet of Things, such that one, even before you get into the space, you can be able to control your enclosure right even from outside remotely. So these are the opportunities we have with this facility, this new trend of events. I would just like to close my session with this. Given respect to what has caused the world to operate in a different light, the COVID-19 virus, which has sort of restricted movement in a way. But we can see that the HVAC system here, when we look at some of the isolation centers we have in our country, Nigeria, and going beyond, most people, most isolation centers, as the case may be, would probably turn to become infection centers, whereby the indoor conditions, the indoor air quality is not adequately catered for by using simple split systems or split units. So there's a need to have a holistic view such that the volume of air, the air change required is frequent. For such enclosures, for health's sake, you should have at least every 5 minutes, you have that volume of air change such that the health of both the health practitioner and the one who is sick is not impaired. And such that we're able to extract this aerosolized virus and filter it out into the atmosphere using the high particulate air filters. This is a document received by ASHRAE, position document on control facilities. That's an extract I got just to help us buttress the point home. So I do want to thank you for this privilege to make this presentation. Kola, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Just a brief, because the HVAC is just a small, tiny part of the every installation, the oil and gas sector. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Risto. Quite insightful. I think we seem to have a couple of people, because I'm getting private messages that some of you attendees are not being able to gain access onto the platform. I'm not sure why, but yeah, this is all the part of the user interface experience that we're hoping to document, because we are using a premium platform here. This is not the basic Zoom platform. So please, as much as possible, we want the feedback so that we will be able to communicate this to the Zoom help team. Without further ado, we have Femi Bamiro coming on to give his presentation. Femi, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, over to you.
Before you go, Kola, just please confirm you can see my screen.
Okay.
Sorry, before you start, so now, whilst the presentation is going on, you can any members of the any of the attendees can pop in their questions there. At the end of all the presentations, we will start picking up on these questions and responding to them. All right, thank you. Femi, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Kola, can you just confirm you can hear me? And I believe everyone can hear me as a result.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Femi Bamiro, and I'm a commercial manager or subcontract manager. At the moment, I work with KBR. I've moved around a little bit within oil and gas and outside of oil and gas. So at times it's a good thing because I can see things within oil and gas and outside of oil and gas, and I can always sort of compare sectors. But the beauty about this meeting today is, for me, it feels like going back to the office, though it's a Saturday. And it feels like being in a room with a lot of engineers. However, the feedback, I mean, I can't see people's faces. And how that kind of feels when you have a commercial guy in a room in a design meeting, and everyone is talking all this commercial stuff, and it's flying over your head. So it's pleasurable to be here. It's a bit of relief. Obviously, I miss the office, and maybe this is just the new norm, and it's good that we're having this. I will try to go through a few slides very quickly. Everything I'll talk about are related back to how you affect or how a commercial view on most of the things we're going to talk about. The good thing about a lot of the things Debola talked about will be repeated on my slide, but again, I'll just take it from the commercial side of things. So I normally work within sort of the project delivery side of things. So I look at things from pre-execution, then also the execution side of things as well. So usually when we want to go out to, in every project, at least from the commercial side of things, we normally start with sort of pre-qualification and audit. These things take some time. Then we'll go down to the cost. Then obviously, data, engineering manuals, and also how materials come into play. From a commercial side of things, one thing, pre-qualification is one thing that takes a lot of time. Believe you me, wherever you are, be it you're working on a project in Kazakhstan or in the UK, finding the right people to do the right job can be a problem. At times, scope seems very simple, but we don't have the people to do it. And at times, it's not because there are no people to do it. Again, it's the fact that the data out there makes it such a monumental task. One of the things we've seen more and more is cost precision. There's some projects in oil and gas, and mostly a lot of projects in oil and gas, we have things like, you've heard things like cost blowouts, and the accuracy in estimation at times, with all due respect, is very interesting. I mean, and I say that with all humility as someone that's come from a different industry that comes in and out. We use a lot of go-bys, and there's a lot of data at the moment that will capture actually. But what we find is, despite the fact that we have a lot of technology and we have all this information around, my last two projects is, predominantly based on go-bys. And you find that if we say, oh, we tell a client, I mean, this piece of steel, say from China, is going to cost you, say, $1,500 per ton. Do we actually deliver at $1,500? Why don't we deliver at what we say when we start off with a go-by? So we begin to see that the use of data to actually advise our clients, in all fairness, at times is questionable. And we need to ask ourselves these sort of very difficult questions when we advise the client, as to cost. I've seen so many instances, where, in design, you sit in design meetings and the client says, oh, actually what I want is something made out of just steel. But what you're giving me is stainless steel. It's singing and dancing. Do I need anything that's singing and dancing? No. Then lastly, in pre-execution, one of the big things is engineering manuals. Again, digitalization will challenge this, because mainly in engineering and in oil and gas, we do an awful lot of hours. What we're going to find and what is happening already is very difficult questions about how many man hours do we need to deliver a piece of work. So engineering man hours is going to be challenged. We're going to get less engineering man hours to do more work. And how does digitalization solve these problems? Material solutions. Again, it's not unusual for you to say on a project, say fabrication, for instance, we want to fabricate in China. Half of our equipment are coming from Europe. We fabricate in China, take the equipment to China, then we ship it back to Europe. So how do we source the right materials using the data that we have to reduce the wastage that we have currently? So there are loads of things pre-execution that, they're very difficult commercial solutions or commercial questions needs to be asked. And further on in my slides, I'm just trying to sort of tease out what I think, where we are sort of at the moment, and also see how we are in terms of our use of sort of digital information and how digital transformation will challenge us and the sort of opportunities we see going for that, mainly from the commercial side of things. Then I go on to execution. Obviously, if you go on to the EPC side of things, you're on site. The kind of things that obviously digitalization can do for us, spatial construction solutions. I won't go into the details of that. Debola said some of that. Digital delivery. When we put a package together, it's not unusual. We have different exhibits for health and safety, for project controls and all of that, nice things. But now what you'll be seeing more is you're going to have an exhibit itself that is telling you that how are you going to deliver this project using the tools that we have, in terms of digital tools and how you integrate everything. At the moment, we have very smart things like maybe your phone apps, and obviously use special technology to tell me where you are real time. You get the information back. Yes, we're doing some of these things, but if we think about where we were last year and where we are now and what is likely to happen, we're going to get a barrage of changes that are going to challenge us to even do more. One of the things I see, that we do, but we're going to do more. Debola mentioned them particularly from an operation side of things, but from project delivery side of things, we're going to see digital sensors for structural monitoring. Hence, the footprint you have of people on site is going to reduce. So you're going to ask yourself, if you're a construction manager and we use digital sensors for structural monitoring, it simply means a gang of construction managers that go out there. How many construction managers do we need? And that fits into progress monitoring as well. The systems we use, do we still use daily reports or CDRs or that we have? And when we use daily reports, how do we monitor progress, both from a cost and also from a construction and engineering perspective? Because one thing we must understand is everything we do in engineering actually has a cost connotation. Gone are those days where we have project managers that they say, all I just want to focus on is my side of things. I'm an engineer, I'm a construction manager. No. Every day you're going to have project managers that are looking at the bottom line. And what they're looking at, I'm looking at a bottom line. I must make profit on this job. How will I use digital transformation and the tools that we have to achieve this? Then we'll go into contract administration. I'll just give a quick example here of where I worked last year. I was working for business, and the amount of data that we produce for each of our sort of applications is enormous. I mean, you're talking, you need to be a data analyst to sift through this. It takes 3 weeks to sift through this data. And on that data, you need to make some payments. The client is overwhelmed in terms of the way they look at it. The client looks at what we're giving to them. They have to make a decision in 3 weeks. After then, they need to pay. But they've not looked at it, but they've paid. Next month, it happens on and on. Then they trigger a clause. When they trigger the clause, they went straight into claims. Because 6-7 months later, the client is saying, I've paid you so much, but I'm not sure you've done so much. How do we use the data that we have to make sure that what we're paying is real time, what we're paying is exactly as per the work that is done? And I won't mention the names of the businesses that this has happened, but believe you me, these are businesses that we all look up to, that perhaps they are somewhere there in terms of how well they use digitalization. In this case, I mean, the business I worked for, they had everything, but the client did not have it. As Debola mentioned, in terms of collaboration and partnerships, how do we work in silos? We might think we're doing well, but it might affect the next person. Again, how do we use digitalization to solve problems like this? Change management feeds into that. We have loads of claims on so many projects. It's not unusual you find the project finishes 2-3 years from now. Claims consultants are still on the job, trying to work out, who is entitled to what. But again, what I think we're going to find here is that a lot of claims is mainly based on data, forensic information, and how you use all that data to make sure that you administer the contract properly and you get some money back in terms of claims from your client. Where we have excellent sort of integrated data systems, it simply means that those things will not take as long. At the heat of a button, where your ecosystem in terms of the way you manage data is so good, your forensic information will not take years for you to pull it up. Everything comes together. And again, I'll touch on very quickly next couple of slides where I think we're going to see this and how it affects our bottom line as well. So typically you find in most oil and gas projects, if the project or contract value is X and Y, say X, for instance, you end up X, sometimes 50% more, sometimes 100% more. It's not unusual you find projects, say, worth 20 million, say, US dollars. When we come to sort of execution, even at the time we start, we must be honest with ourselves. Most of us go to say, yes, we start this project. We know very much that it's 20 million. That is what we'll push through. But deep inside of us, based on the engineering information that we have, And I like the engineers, obviously, I know, I don't have any feedback here, but we know very much that when we're advising the client to say, oh, this is going to cost 20 million based on the engineering information we have, but we know that we will not deliver that project for 20 million. But you find that with the sort of technology that is coming on board, as I said in my first slide, cost precision, cost accuracy, the use of go-bys to make sure that you have 100% of when you use a go-by in terms of when you deliver the work, we'll have to be accountable for that. So as a whole, when I look at the industry, and I do challenge some of our previous speakers, not so much develop. When we take Aristotle that talked about HVAC, for instance, is where are we as an industry? We have there are many businesses that, I'll take the holistic view. I'll say Nigeria and UK. I'll say Nigeria, we are digitally active. But in the UK, in the industry, I believe, this is my belief as Femi Bamiro, I think we are digitally engaged. We need to get to a point where we are digitally competitive. Then we'll get to digitally mature. I think being digitally mature is a tall order because very few businesses are there, maybe the Googles, the Facebooks, and maybe Amazon, that they use analyticals at a level that is unprecedented. But we need, what we'll see here is we're going to move from being digitally engaged to digitally competitive very quickly. And that might happen by force. So again, talking about where we are, in most of the businesses we work, we have proprietary systems. So we have IPs that sort of covers intellectual properties. There's hardly any business that does not have, particularly in engineering, that does not have something that they sell. So we can say that indeed we have some digital compliance, or we're in this digital space because we're selling these proprietary systems. But what will happen is that those proprietary systems, they're not enough. They will need to speak to much bigger things, and that involves a lot of data. And also, where I've talked about sort of significant cost escalations due to the way we manage our projects, due to the way we sort of deliver man hours. Also, because when we start off our design, we know where the faults are, but we actually don't. We believe when we come to execution, there's some wonders we can do. Then you have significant cost blowouts, as you have in some cases. Then lastly, automation in design, which was again what we're talking about. Yes, we have automation in design. We have automation in terms of control systems. There's some wonderful technology out there in terms of how we monitor the field real time and how we use technology to do this. But we need to go over and above automation in design. As Kolapo mentioned, is automation in the culture, because I am a commercial person. And when I sit back and I look at all these wonderful things engineers talk about, at times I think, what are you guys going on about? I don't know some of these things because I just deal with the cost. And there's so many people like me as well. Yes, we sell the technology. Yes, we talk about the technology. That's what I need to know. I don't need to know how you put all your calculations together. So we need to shift from automation in design to automation as a culture, as a whole. And obviously, some of these things will come to the Internet of Things that we talked about. So it will move from one proprietary system here, another one here, a computer here, this one talks to it, you get output. No. Collaboration will come into place, as we talked about. Our teams will get really smaller, and everyone in the business will always look at the bottom line and how we use all these tools we talk about to make sure that we are in check when it comes to cost, and we have some significant and very interesting sort of commercial strategies that we use to make sure that we remain profitable. Very quickly, I'll just compare where we are as an industry, or at least from my own opinion, and I've I've moved around to other industries. We take the commercial industry, for instance, anything from, say, from high residential to building cinemas to just any sort of commercial facility we can think about. I believe when it comes to digitalization, the commercial sector is ahead of the oil and gas industry, particularly in terms of culture. We have singing and dancing systems in terms of engineering, but in terms of how we approach day to day, I believe the commercial industry will use anything they have, and they are there already, because the cutthroat in profit that they need to make means that, with all due respect, they will kill for a pound, if I can, politically correct that. The rail industry, yes, at times will, in some sense, in the rail industry, they'll probably are part. There's still so much improvement that can be made. But in terms of how the industry uses digitalization, is particularly on the commercial side of things, they're probably slightly ahead. Marine shipping and logistics, that has to be the case, because there's a lot of things that needs to happen real time. They're more on the operation side of things. Infrastructure generally, I think obviously there's a lot that can be done in infrastructure. And also in power, I'll say probably we're at par. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to digital transformation, I think there's a long way we need to go in oil and gas. And that is just my opinion, particularly from automation in design to the culture. So there, I have some thoughts. Again, these are my thoughts on what I think we can do, what I think will happen. Typically, before I came into the oil and gas industry, one thing I've always known with oil and gas is the cycle of sort of boom and bust takes anything between sort of, say, 8 to 10 years. The guys that we work with that they've worked in this industry for a long time, they'll tell you, we've seen this thing happen in my career 3 times. But what we're finding is the concept of disruption is becoming very, very regular. We're not talking of a cycle of 6 or 8 years anymore. We're probably looking at cycles these days of 24 months. There's always events. Now, in terms of when we look at business disruptions and the commercial effects of that, we can look at the big things. Yes, Russia, Saudi Arabia, these are political issues. They're much, much bigger. But when we look at some of the disruptions in terms of the way we work, the things that affect us, as businesses in the industry, those are the sort of things we can control. How do we sort of deliver to our clients? How do we make sure that everything we talk about is optimal? I'm not just an engineer. I'm an engineer, but I've got my focus on the way on commercial. I've got my commercial sort of pencil all sharpened. I know the effect of if it takes me 6 days to do stuff, and I can do it in 3. There's a commercial impact in that. At times we think yes, or I work freelance. There's a temptation to think yes. How will I put it? Yeah, I'll just keep taking the box. But the truth remains that the bottom line is what defines where we're going, and we'll keep looking at that. Internet of Things. I won't spend too much on time on that. I've got a slide further down that tells us how where we are now and how we'll see the Internet of Things even get bigger. How we're going to have a lot of integration in terms of work, personal life, anything that captures data, how all that comes into one port, and how we use that to move things forward. We will, after a few months ago, that we'll be talking via Zoom at the rate at which we are now. But this has come to stay, whether we go back to normality or not. If anything, we're going to see this even escalate to a point where we can't just run away from it. Personally, I kind of used to frown at this, but the truth is, if I say I'm not going to catch up with the use of internet and the way we have these meetings, it's my problem. So business skill and acquisition will have to learn things very quickly. I believe there are loads of advantages in digitalization, and what we'll find is that we'll need to learn new skills that will make us relevant over time. As Debola said, some tasks that we do are going to become redundant. But how do we unlearn some things and learn new things that make sure that we're still relevant wherever we find ourselves? And also, because these are my thoughts, I believe that some of the bigger businesses that we work for, typically you find businesses buy up another arm of a business. You find loads of mergers and acquisitions within oil and gas businesses. Some businesses will sell subsea businesses. and they will acquire another part of the business. I believe what we're going to find is if we're not up to that task, you find some traditional oil and gas businesses begin to buy even smaller startups that will provide them with the tools they need to get to where they need to get to, but also startups that, that will, enhance, that will accelerate what they need to do very quickly. This is just my thoughts, but I won't be surprised if you find the likes of a large EPC company, for instance, or even some of the IOCs tell you we are investing heavily in a company that is mainly not just R&D as we know it to be, but is mainly like an AI company that traditionally will be in Silicon Valley doing something else that will be non-oil and gas related. So businesses will begin to buy up all sorts of things that, will put them, in a place where they're mature or they can compete as they ought to do. Remote operations, I won't, dabble too much on that. Debola is, he said some of the things that we'll see both for delivery and operations of the project. That's going to increase as well. So where are we likely heading to? Again, we're going to have dashboards, and that's just where the dashboard is a simple interface, but that is backed up by an awful lot of data. I was talking to Kolapo, and it was mind-blowing to find out that there's actually a pipeline where if you look at that sort of pipeline real time, and you click along the pipeline, it gives you an enormous amount of data of where it was bought, time, the materials, and all that sort of information all in one place. And we'll be seeing simple dashboards that we use, but backed up by an awful lot of data. Mixed reality, I believe, has come to stay, be it augmented or virtual. We'll probably find an awful lot that will reduce some of the roles we play. But I believe if we morph into sort of our skills morph into digitally compliant sort of skills, that may not necessarily drive us out of business, but we'll just have to move with the trend of things. Efficiency data ecosystems, again, we're not going to work in silos, is how businesses interact with each other and how we get the best out of that. But also I see big opportunities from the data regulation and legislation side of things. Not too long ago, obviously, protection of sort of personal data was a big thing. But with the amount of data that we need to do, that we need to have, we need to store, and we need to sort of transform that in terms of how we advise our clients and how it all affects the bottom line. I believe it's an area where it's still new, and there will be a lot of unlearning and learning to do there. We're going to move away from proprietary systems as we know it to be. We're going to move into even sort of bigger sort of data, and obviously the 5G is here to help all those things. But before I get to my last slide, I'll just talk very quickly about what I've seen on some of the last two projects I've worked on. So traditionally, what we'll find is that when we go through sort of pre-feed, feed, detailed design, then you go to execution. You use a lot of data, particularly pre-feed and to an extent feed, to actually get your estimation right, based on MTOs and what have you, and all the sort of design and engineering information that you have. The client takes all that estimate and it does, they do their own sort of independent thing, and they come to a figure and say, this is what we think the FID is going to be. But what we're finding is the client is coming very much ahead of time, even sort of pre-feed, to ask the question, how much is this going to cost us? And they're saying, if it's going to cost us this, whatever you tell us is going to cost us is what it's going to be. And I've seen projects being canned and projects being cancelled just between when we've advised the clients to say, this is how much we think it's going to cost. Then a couple of months down the line, we say, this is where we think we are, or this is where we're likely to head. So what is happening now is because of the way they have to raise cash, the competition you have, in the industry, it simply means that gone are those days where your FID says we're going to deliver this project for 20 billion. Then when you're going into execution, you find out it's going to be 40. A lot of the IOCs, because of the sort of returns they get on this business, are very quickly able to overlook things like that and say, even if it doubles, we're still going to deliver this work. But we're having open book estimates. They want cost certainty, a FID, where we're saying, no, we don't have detailed engineering. We're going to get lump sums. We're committing to our supply chains to say, we're going to deliver this job 3-4 years down the line at a fixed cost. It doesn't have to change. The margin of error is at times 10%. The risk falls back on some of these businesses. Then you ask yourself, how do we use the data we have? It's going to be either subtle or it will have to be by force. Our go-bys cannot drift apart by, say, 80-90%. Our go-bys and the data we use, maximum we're talking of a margin of error 10%, to make sure that what we say as sort of front-end engineering is what we deliver the project for. So because of tight margins, I believe you're going to have an acceleration of digitization if the industry must actually survive. And also, I look at some commercial solutions also from Nigeria, and I do most of my work in the UK. And what you find is, yes, we have some of these nice singing and dancing technologies, but if we're struggling, I believe Nigeria even is far behind. Is the kind of information you have on NIPEX, is the kind of information you have in terms of NAPIMS. Yes, Nigerian, businesses and organizations might say, okay, it's business as usual. Business as usual will only drive us further backwards when we're trying to push an acceleration for digitalization. Because what you have is we just can't compete because we're way too expensive. And there's a temptation for us to think, yes, we have sweet crude. There's a temptation for us to think, yes, our returns are good. That's true. But as Debola mentioned, there are new fields that have been found in so many places in the world. And with all the sort of technology we have for decarbonization, all the technologies we have for what we can do with crude, means that we will have to be more competitive. So I believe whilst there's an acceleration for digitization, we cannot do things business as usual. We just have to move with it and accelerate, as quickly as we can. And so lastly, this is my slide. It talks about the Internet of Things and so the way our devices were connected. This is in 2020. We're talking 20 billion, right? Devices connected. But if we look at where it's going to go in the next 10 years, it's just astronomical. From 20 billion to 50 billion. I don't want to know how many things will be connected in the next 10 years that is going to make our data super fast, that is going to make us deliver, to cost. Information and everything will be so accessible, and we have to move with it if we must stay competitive. And as I said, and I think the bottom line is, I'll add to my presentation is, let us keep watching the bottom line, because that is what will drive how things are done. Let us not be in a position where we are sort of reactive. We just have to be ahead of it, and so make sure that we're thinking, in as much as we're thinking engineering, we're thinking how this data will come together. Let us also focus on the money. And I think I'm just going to leave my presentation there for now, and I'll let B. Kolapo come in and just take over from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Femi. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So we have our next speaker keyed in to go in. I'm extremely excited because he's actually a good friend and I haven't spoken to him in quite a while. Sheyi, I believe you're ready. Sheyi, okay.
Yep, I'm ready. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sheikh Lade. Currently, I'm located in Abu Dhabi. Where I work with one of the operators in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. And I'm so glad to be with you all. I hope you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
All right. So I will just move in quickly. I've got just a very few slides to share with us. I'm a pipeline engineer, and I actually started my career as a design engineer from Nigeria before I found myself here, right? So, and my background is actually mechanical engineering. So we've been into the design industry. Fortunately, I found myself in integrity management. Now I do operations, maintenance, and partly technical designs within the office when it's required. Yeah. So my life cycle to date has given me the opportunity to go through different sectors within the pipeline industry, right? So when we speak about digitalization in pipeline industry, it's more or less going into what most of the panelists have talked about. And for our own industry, it's something that I would not say is far-fetched. It's something that is being inculcated into the industry, into the pipeline systems that we have. And I might not be using too much of Nigerian system for any description. I might be talking more about where I am and we have worked for about 9 to 10 years, right? So for us, like Kolapo also said, and Debola, I think, digitalization, mostly about information technology, technological influences on our systems, data collection and data analysis, and the use of cloud technologies to better our system. And a very good example of what we see over here is that we actually have like things that we call a smart field. A smart field in the sense that these fields are not just one particular field, which I will use as an example. It's not operated, it's like an unmanned field, and it's mostly operated, it's automated completely. And this field produces up to like close to 200,000 barrels of oil per day. And it is remotely operated, and all other operators are just people that sit in front of the GUI systems, and majorly females. And that's the way they've just designed the system to work. It was called a pilot field at first, but currently it works so smartly that even the operators are thinking of extending the technology to other fields. Now, the first thing that starts coming to your mind when you hear about digitalization in your own very particular industry is, what happens to me? What happens to my skills? Will I be out of job, or would this be affecting me, or do I need to find something else to do? I think it sort of pops up questions in all, so that we try to move with the trend of things, and to just be very, very factual and to be very real. If we can keep talking about the effect of digitalization and the digital transformation, if we do not move as the technology is moving, and we do not get ourselves relevant as the technology is moving, we might just find ourselves being left behind. Take, for example, the current situation that we are facing, which is the COVID situation. If there were, I will use Nigeria, if there were pastors in the past that would say, I don't want to do anything on the internet, I've got nothing to do with social media, I hate social media. Today, I think for the past 2 months, they would obviously have been in trouble, because the only platform for them to have been able to present to their followers would have just have been through the social media, through the technology that has been made available through digitalization. So what am I saying? We as well, as workers, we as personnel, as employees, or even company owners, we need to move with the trend of things, because as sad as it is, or as good as it is, that is where the world is moving towards. And that's where most industries are moving. In the pipeline industries, we generate huge amount of data. And I'm happy that the last speaker talked about it. Huge amount of data, and we always need that data management. And, starting from design up to construction, from construction to pre-commissioning and commissioning, from commissioning into operation and maintenance, integrity management, even up to the decommissioning stage, there are huge amounts of data that are being managed every day, even within the design stage alone. Now, when you now look at those different stages of the life cycle of any pipeline, you need a kind of system that will be able to manage those data for you. If, for example, we go to the primitive method of just doing design, you do your feed design fits into your detailed design, then your detailed design, all the analysis is taken into, all the data is taken into construction, and you construct your pipeline. And those data are left in hard copies, and they are just on one shelf. And tomorrow they need to do something about a particular point or a particular section of the pipeline. Then it becomes an issue to find documents. I'm not trying to reveal information that there are pipelines within this region that typically they've been designed for a very long time. There are pipelines that have operated for 55 years. They are still in operation up to now, but you hardly would be able to get information about their design. You hardly will be able to get information about their construction. But when you look at pipelines that are being laid currently, this pipeline, even from the design stage, every information that is generated, which is regarded as final information, is loaded into a GIS system, which collaborates with what the last speaker says, which is if the pipeline is complete and the pipeline is into operation, at any particular time, you need to do something at a point A or point B of that pipeline, you can click out and get the information about the design. You know what happens. You can get the alignment sheets. You can get information about how the pipes were fabricated, from where they were fabricated, material fabrication specification. You can get information about how they were pre-commissioned, what went wrong about their pre-commissioning. Everything is loaded in that system, and that design information fits into operation. So when operation people have any issue about maintenance for any particular issue or an issue with a manufacturing defect in the system, they can equally go into the design and see what has been recommended, then move into the the fabrication document and see what was even given by the client or by the vendor at that time. And they have instant information on how they can do any maintenance which they want. Now, this also for the maintenance people as well, having gotten all those information, it helps them to do their work, make decisions. And when they also have finished doing what they ought to do, what they want to do on a particular region or particular section of the pipeline, they load their own information, they load their own data, they load whatever modification that has been done in that section back into the GIS system of that pipeline system. Right now, that helps that pipeline to store information at every particular time, meaning decisions can be made for every particular pipeline system or a section of a pipeline, because everything that you need is available for you real time, right? So it helps in design, it helps in construction, it helps in commissioning, operation, even integrity management and decommissioning. There are situations where pipeline system, they exceed their design life, and after they finish their design life, you would typically think that these pipelines should just be out of operation. But because if you go into the data that has been managed over time, and you've been able to see that, look, this pipeline still seems okay, the required analysis is done, and with the information that have been stored over time, you see that the pipeline has been maintained and has been operated within the required envelope over a period of time, then nothing stops you from extending your operation even beyond the design life of the system. But when there are no information kept over time, when you've not gotten to the stage of managing your data efficiently, then it might be very, very hard for you to keep using a system beyond the design life. And you can imagine a system over here that has been used for 55 years, a system that was designed for 25 years, yet it has given that operator the benefit of being used over double the period that it was designed for. Why? Because they kept information, because they were able to manage the system well, and because they were able to prove over a period of time that this is the way in which this system has been managed. Okay, so when I move on to the benefits that this digitalization gives into our own industry, I look at an improved pipeline performance and integrity with real-time insights. Real-time insights, as in at real time, you are able to determine what should be done over for a section of a pipeline if there is any damage that is done to it. The next one is early response time and availability of useful information. There's response time in case of any emergency occurrence. Sometimes, if I look at in our own region, in this region which I find myself, there are situations that happen, like emergency situations, maybe like a leak of a section of a pipeline. The fact that these pipelines are managed and they are digitalized. For example, in the pipeline industry, if you want real-time information for any pipeline, then this pipeline has to be laid with fiber optic cables. And once this fiber optic cable is laid, if there is any leak within this pipeline, in real time, you're able to determine the exact point within 10 meters of where this incident might have happened. And you're able to mobilize people to the location. But when such is not available in a system that is being laid down, there is possibility that even while the leak had occurred, over a period of time, oil will keep gushing out without you knowing. And then even those at the other end that are receiving the oil might not even know that they are losing oil. Why? Because there is nothing giving them information at the other end that there is a problem in their system. The third one, which I could talk about, which is one of the benefits, is centralization of availability of asset data for informed decision making, which I talked about before. And also we have reduced safety risk. Operations and maintenance costs is reduced due to digitalization, and also productivity and efficiency. Then we have safety, environmental safety, which is also increased. What areas do we use it more in pipeline? For my own sector, the areas that are very particular, which I talked about, is design and construction. I talked about this before, design and construction. Operation also, there are so much data that we generate during operations. Data about the daily operation of the pipeline, what goes into the pipeline daily, what amount, what pressure is this pipeline operated, what flow is the pipeline operated. These has to be measured every day, and this information needs to be stored. And these informations are analyzed, if not monthly, they are analyzed every quarter, so that you would be able to understand whether you are operating your system within the required cycle, or maybe you are just cycling your system, which is quite dangerous for your pipeline system. And without a way of digitalizing your information, there is possibility that you just keep on doing things. You just keep on operating, you just keep on flowing the oil without knowing that you're endangering your system. Also performance analysis, which I think I've mentioned. Another area where the benefit is seen here is automation. When a pipeline system is automated, the benefits are huge. For every pipeline system, there is something they do which is used in maintaining the pipeline. They call it pigging. The pigging is just a run of a cleaning equipment into the pipeline. It comes from one end, it's removed from the other end. Now, there is possibility that this device or this little tool hangs into the pipeline and without any possibility of moving out. Maybe because of one obstruction or the other within the section of the pipeline, it just gets stuck. And once it gets stuck, there is possibility that your oil will not flow, or you have a limited amount of flow through your pipeline, wherever the oil can find to go through. Right. Now, if your system is not automated, for example, you don't have some digital measuring instruments, or you don't have some flow meters within sections of the pipeline, or you don't have some digital measuring instrument like I talked about, and there are no monitoring at different sections of the pipeline, there is possibility that you may not know where this equipment is trapped. For example, if you don't have markers on your line, and these markers sending information to the control room, you might not be able to determine that, look, my pig might have passed this location, or my peak might be in this location. And when you have a pipeline so long, like 150 kilometers or 450 kilometers like we have here, you run a very big risk. Then you have to be digging up to find sections of your pipeline where this device must have been stuck. But when you have markers, when you have peak trackers on the line, you'll be able to know, okay, at this so time, it passed this location. Yes, we received information in the control room. It passed this location. Yes, it passed this location. No, it did not pass this location. That means it is between A and between B and C. Then you can now narrow down and start looking for ways of locating the exact point on the line. Right, that's what it helps you to do. Then it also helps in monitoring, it helps in control. There are so many PLC systems, DCS, SCADA systems that are being used within our industry. All this is to ensure that human interaction with the pipeline is limited. Now, also in integrity management systems, we have our testing and inspections. Many a times, these pipelines, they are still made of steel and they face corrosion issues. In the world today, when you want to do measurements, there are measurements that are being done. They tell you it's radiography measurements, for example. When this is done, you have to wait for around 24 hours or 48 hours for you to get results, to be able to act on that result. But in today's world, there are machines that have been made in a digital form that you only need to clamp onto the pipeline, and it will tell you, it will inspect the pipeline and give you real-time information about what is happening within your pipeline, even imaging of your complete pipeline, right? And also this helps in our intelligent pigging, we call it ILI, which is inline inspection. Also for inline inspection, and the current technology in the technology that we had before, the former technologies were technologies that would just measure maybe corrosion in a line or measure cracks in a line. But there are technologies today that can combine crack and combine corrosion and even measure longitudinal and circumferential defects within the pipeline. And this is one of the benefits which digitalization has presented to us. Another one is surveillance. Surveillance is one of the major things, one of the major tools which is required to keep your pipeline system safe. Why? Security issue. Security is always a big issue for us. And what are the technologies available for us today? Today we talk about CCTVs. There are CCTVs manning different locations, still locations within a pipeline or within a plant locations. And there are in the time past, we see situations where we let people just patrol a particular line right of way from A to B to see if there is anything happening or there is any third-party activity happening within the line. But in the world today, there are drones that fly over all through pipeline right of way to tell you, and you just be in your office, you control, and there's also someone in the control room controlling it while you are in the office. You are watching all that is happening all along the route of the pipeline. Yes, about 5 to 6 people might have been laid out of work because of that, but then they as well would have gone into a way of diversifying to know what they can do better for themselves. Yes, this is one of the downside of digitalization, but then the good thing for the operator is it's improved. There is efficiency, improvement of efficiency, and productivity is improved, and he's spending less, though there might be a capital cost to that. Another one is the enhanced manpower intervention. Yeah, it enhances manpower intervention because you don't need to, at every time, every day, patrol a particular line over a period of time. Also, one of the very benefits of digitalization is in leak detection. Leak detection, which I talked about, fiber optic cables and the use of fiber optic cables and our digital measuring equipment. This in this area, this is very, very profound and is something that is well used here. Maintenance, it prevents enormous shutdown, right? Enormous shutdown. If there is a particular leak in an area and you see that at both ends of a pipeline, you can see pressure drops in the line. Where digitalization is not in place, there is possibility that you have to keep digging for many days keep patrolling for many days without you finding where your problem is. But when digitalization is put in place, when there are fiber optic cables that are connected to some measuring instruments and sensors, it will tell you exactly within 10 meters. Even there are some technology that give you within 5 meters where your problem is exactly. Okay, so another area is predictive modeling in our hydraulics, in our fit for service assessment, even optimization of pumping in the pipelines. This also is used. Security and environment also is an area that benefits so much from digitalization within the pipeline industry. Right. So if I quickly move, my second to the last slide is when we look at our own environment, obstacles, what are the, because when Kola talked to me, he said, we are narrowing down to Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. For us, we have quite some peculiar problems. It's not as if this is not obtainable in Nigeria. Of course, it's obtainable. It's in when most designs are done, this can always be incorporated into design. It's not rocket science. It's something that is done in so many places. But our system and the way we've been wired, are we ready to accept it and to make use of it? In a location like this place, these things work. We are able to monitor systems by CCTV. We are able to monitor systems through drones, and people are able to respect a right of way. Why? Because there are laws and regulations in place that have been put in place, and people respect them because they know that trespassing for any particular reason, there is an amount of fine in which you have to pay, and you might even get locked up for a very prolonged period of time, no matter who you may be, right? So one of the obstacles of our own industry back home in Nigeria or in Africa is respect for law and regulations. Another one is increased exposure and education. Yes, these technologies are there. Yes, these technologies are available. We can go into it and grab knowledge from this technology, but is our system ready to absorb it? Are we ready to use it? And are we ready to allow it to operate? One of the very fears we would have is this will take so many people out of job. And we should not shy away from that. Yes, it would happen. But then these people, there is the good side is they would always have another way to diversify. They can diversify into something, or they diversify into something different, or they upgrade themselves into that same industry where that has taken over their possible job. By doing that, they make themselves relevant in different ways. All right. So another one is long-term plans. Most of our plans in Nigeria are just short-term. Short-term, we want to just make the money quickly. We want to get the profits in. We want to get the profits rolling, but we are not looking ahead. In this society, I find myself, they are making 50-year plan. There are 50 years plan on the table, which they've shared with everybody, and everyone within the industry, within the company that you find yourself, because it's a region objective, 50 years plan. Everyone is working towards that objective of ensuring that whatever you are doing, you align and you ensure that whatever you are doing, you contribute to that objective, right? So long-term plan, that is one of the very things that we lack. Another one is security. There's security issues everywhere. We are Nigerians, or most of us here are Nigerians. We always hear about pipeline vandalization. These things don't just happen. It's not as if there are some of these pipelines are new pipelines. Some of them have only operated for 10 years. What is happening? Why would all of a sudden they just burst and there will be fire? These are sabotages. This sabotage, people just decide to just act because they know that no one will take them. But where digitalization come into place, even before the attack is made, already security operatives are already alerted, and they are coming for you immediately. That there are pipeline corridors within this area, and pipelines that are buried within 1 meter down. And even above their barrier, there is another 1.2 meter triangular berm that is made on them. Then within their corridor, there is like barbed fence all through. And these are not, I'm not talking about very little network. I'm talking of networks that span over 1,700 kilometers, but all very secure, because that is where the source of livelihood of the country comes from. And they have secured them very well. It doesn't mean third party don't come into it to want to sabotage, but you know, as you are approaching, information is going out, and the nearest security agents are approaching to you also. You know, that is the level in which they have gone in securing their asset. Maintainability is one other issue with Nigeria. Organizational structure, our organizational structure, and the fact that we mostly just want shortcuts. We just want to do it very fast. Let's just do it. Okay, this pipeline has an issue. Okay, what's the best about it? Okay, just patch it and code it up, and you know, without minding that this pipeline is what gives you whatever you earn over a period of time. It's always good for you to do things to match the standard, to match the specification in which they've been designed for. Shortcuts would always spell doom. Another one is sabotage, which I talk about, which is just some of the obstacles which I see to digitalization in our own Sub-Saharan African. And the good thing is we're coming together. We're not just coming together to just blab and talk. We're coming together so that we can seek a solution and see how we can be of help to our environment. And I'm quite glad, and I thank Kola for this opportunity to be able to present my own little part of this webinar. The other one that I put here before saying thank you to all is just my experience. It was just within the period which I was working in Nigeria, right? And within this period, I know I visited a site I will not mention, and I went to do an inspection. After completing, I had not even completed the inspection. I've done every other thing. I was to do a design. I've done every other thing, inspected and taken data of what I want. Then all of a sudden, I walked through a part and I just saw a tapping into a pipeline. They tapped into this pipeline and there was a big hose that ran out. So I knew immediately that this is a third-party operation going on here. I went back into the control room of that facility and I alerted them that, look, there is a sabotage on your line, there is an oil tap on your line, and oil is being siphoned out of the line. And they told me to take them there. I took them there and we returned to the office. But do you know what happened to me afterwards? I was told within 10 minutes, I was told I had to leave that facility immediately, that if not, my life would be in danger. And they bundled me out using with a boat, and they took me onshore back, right? And that was how I got to my office, and I was so threatened. My manager was telling me, look, why would you go, and is that what you were sent to do? I said, I'm a pipeline engineer, and I saw that. I thought it's something I should report to them so that they can take action. They said, no, they didn't need me to give such information. So I will not be on that project again, and I'm out. That is one obstacle in Nigeria. How to solve such, I leave it to our thoughts. Thank you very much for this session. I quite appreciate it. Thank you. Over to you, Kola.
Thank you for that, Shay. Man, Shay, you have me cracking, in laughter here on that last information. I mean, the seriousness and the gravity of what you described is actually very real. Obviously, we thank God that we're in a position now that we can all smile about it, and thank you very much for that. Now, our time is running short, but I implore the rest of, I implore everybody in attendance to please stay on. The intention is, if we do run over the allotted time, which is 8 p.m., we would extend it by a couple of minutes, because we do value engagement from the audience, because you guys, your feedback is actually quite important, right from the technical content to the user interface, which we're using to present to you guys. So please, feedback is absolutely important. Speaking for myself, even if it's negative feedback, I wouldn't take it personally. Even if I do, within a day, by the time I have 1 or 2 Guinness, I'll feel all right, and I'm back smiling again. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to our next panelist, Banji. Banji, are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
All right, go right ahead.
Yep. Hi, I'll try as much as possible to make this real quick. So it's going to be more just pointing out my slides for you guys to have an idea from a like a 30,000 feet what digitization is from the upstream and midstream level. So it's just going to be real quick, like 5-10 minutes. Hopefully, at least we'll be able to get it through. Just a bit about me. I'm a geologist by background. Spent quite a number of years with Chevron, moving around a bit, the UK, Middle East, Australia, then the US. Then I bounced off from there because I was doing technical and commercial work. Then I bounced off from there and I joined Deloitte in their energy M&A group and did that for a bit. And now I'm working for a small outfit. It's also a consulting firm, but they focus strictly on oil and gas. So I do more cost improvement, performance improvement type projects and digitization. So I'll just quickly share my screen now for you guys. So we can quickly walk through. So the joy about having other people speak ahead of you is that they tend to, put the flesh onto pretty much what exactly you're trying to talk about. So now I'm just going to put the skin and just try to walk us through every single thing from a digitization perspective. So the work that I technically do with my company right now is to try as much as possible to get the oil and gas companies here in the US, onshore and offshore and parts of South America on how best they can improve their performance, their operations, especially during these trying times. And the trying times we have is even pre-post this whole COVID thing and taking away the Saudi Arabia and Russia problem. But the price of oil just keeps fluctuating. And when the price of oil is high, as we all know, everyone just, splashes out and you have loads and loads of, overhead costs without trying to maintain a firm operational excellence, trying to produce smart, as we call it. So this is just going to quickly run through on what I, based on work, what we expect digital transformation in an EMP production would be from an upstream. So we have a platform both onshore and offshore. You have sensors which are on the rig which determine either abnormal temperature, abnormal production, basically abnormal issues which we know that have already been indicated. They're about possibly human activity, possibly not, but basically the sensors indicated. You now have an integrated operations center, which might either be located close to the field or far from it, and you have the sensors sending the readings down there, and you have the individual over there trying to identify, the engineer trying to identify what the issue might be, which definitely would be as a result of diagnosis or a 3D model, basically being interactive to be able to identify what it is. Now, for an onshore platform, you end up having real-time requests from one of the OFS, so either Weatherford or Schlumberger or Baker Hughes. Either they are initially in part of this integrated operations center, and they quickly send out whoever it is for the onshore field to try and identify what it is, fix the issue that has been identified by the sensor, or try to at least request extra support on it. Now, for the offshore one, this is one that that I and a group of my team members here in the US try to recommend and put into operation for a couple of shelf production platforms here in the US. Instead of you having to send human beings out to just go do the surveillance, because that's going to cost money from either flying them out on a plane or on a helicopter, you end up using drones. And the surveillance drones technically would go off to the offshore rig and either snap pictures or try to survey what exactly the problem is. And it now reports whatever the issue might be at that point in time. Now, number 4 now is now real-time analytics. You have, predictive analytics, which help determine what is the best maintenance needed for whatever the issue might be. If it's a pipeline that had burst, or if it's, drop in pressure, or if it maybe one of the drilling heads might have had an issue, whatever it is, you have a center which, which definitely analyzes the real-time analytics on that. You'd then have then have an engineer who would have smart devices. And those engineers might, receive alerts in whichever shape or form, either, their phones, their tablets, and that technically helps with regards to indicating what the problem might be and how best to, solve the solution. Then you now have 3D printers. excuse me, and those are parts and tools which require to fix the issues as printed in real time, you know, in using 3D printers for that particular process. You now have the go back for the offshore one. You now have delivery drones, which technically go back out offshore, and they now deliver parts, you know, from the warehouse, and you know, might have one or two people who might just go out there to help sort out whatever the issue might be, maybe fix the rig or patch the pipeline, whatever it is. But the current status which we have right now is, you know, sending as many people as possible, 4 or 5 people to go fix the thing. It reduces overhead and, you know, tries to create a lean lean system. Then you now have even though this one is just, you know, as I call it, wishful thinking, but you know, you have engineers utilizing virtual models, you know, like smart glasses, tablets, which, you know, help perform the maintenance at the same time once they receive the equipment from the drones. So this, like I said, is just a quick, you know, 30,000 feet overview of how an ideal digitized platform is on the upstream. So basically from the field itself, all the way to maintenance and all the way to production. Sorry. Yeah, then the second one I'll quickly run through is for the midstream. Same process, less people on it. Key points, like I said, for the upstream and midstream are what I've, you know, written below, which is minimizing human interaction. That's technically what I showed in the first one, and we'll show here. Digital workforce, network optimization, and predictive maintenance. For the midstream, same thing. You have digital asset management for the supervisory control and data analytics system. So basically, you have it determine or detect whatever issue might be in real time for the pipelines. You have an integrated control room where you have an engineer or a technician who is there, who technically, you know, diagnoses whatever the issue might be and whatever form, and now tries to schedule the best review and best maintenance option. You have a biometric monitor stroke GIS, basically wearable devices where the field worker can safely go and have an idea what exactly the status is. So he doesn't technically have to go there in person or be there in person, but, you know, can be afar and understand what the issue might be. Same thing like the upstream, you have the drones, you know, come in if it's one of those kind of remote places or remote areas where accessibility to the pipelines might be an issue. And, you know, they go there from high level, have a look, you know, get pictures and send it back to the control center. You now have the same thing, the analytics and simulations. Once they get the information, they now take their time to analyze it and indicate what the best option would be with regards to maintenance, or if it's something that might have been sabotaged. Basically give a firm idea of what, you know, the problem might be and how best to allot the solution. Same thing, smart devices. Once they've identified that, you now have the smart devices, let the engineers know wherever their location is with regards to the details of how best to prepare to solve the particular problem. Number 7, you have the digital workforce management. So the management group. Sorry. Hello. Sorry, I thought someone spoke. I now have the digital workforce management group where you have an engineer who's scheduled for whatever planned maintenance would be. He will be indicated, he'll be identified, and he would have information on what it's meant to be. Same thing, trying to reduce overheads, trying to reduce the number of people going out to go fix it. You have a dynamic inventory management, which is basically more from a logistics decision to optimize the sourcing of the repair. So how best, you know, they can source that particular equipment or tool or whatever it is, you know, either from an oil field service group or just a general vendor if it's planned or unplanned. Then you have smart trucks who come out to deliver whatever the tool might be or whatever the maintenance issue might be. And you now have same thing, wishful thinking for now, but, you know, tablets and smart glasses where the engineers can utilize this to guide them with regards to the workflows, if it's something that they can solve remotely, or if it's something that they have to go in person to try to fix. This just gives a general overview, like I said, of pretty much what everyone has been, well, most of the other speakers have said from a digital perspective, what we think the future should be. Do we think it's achievable in Sub-Saharan Africa? At least I know from experience, South Africa are trying as much as possible to get at least some of the fields that PetroSA are involved in or that are producing from to try as much as possible to be, you know, digital, even if it's just more from a drone perspective or maintenance. But the big issue, like the previous speakers spoke about, is it's just the culture in us as you know, as Africans, as Nigerians, which is with regards to having a perfect, a workable system where everything works. So if it's not so much from some making a conscious effort to sabotage the particular pipeline, you know, as best so they can produce and go sell on the high seas, or you know, or something of that sort. If those kind of activities are not checked, this is technically wishful thinking. But one thing that at least I know that from my experience, at least working in the consulting realm, at least here in North America, is that this is the step that most of all, both the smaller companies, the independent companies, the small majors, and even the large ones are trying as best to do with regards to their maintenance. Because each time the oil prices fluctuates, we're always happy when it's, you know, 50, 60, $100 per barrel, because that's when you have loads of G&As and LOEs, you know, costs. You have loads of different projects coming up and different groups coming up with regards to how best to spend the money. But when the price of oil comes down, we now realize that we have to act smart. We have to try as much as possible to minimize the amount of activity and money being spent, but maximize production. Basically, we're trying to get the field to talk to us and not so much us talk to the field. So this is, like I said, this is part of the work that I do. And this is what I think is the future right now, especially with what we're going through right now and people having to, you know, cut costs from the amount of overheads with regards to people, 5 or 6 people doing one particular role. I think this is how best we can harness the productivity and maximize the amounts of, you know, worth and information, and as well, you know, reserves and costs and production from fields in Sub-Saharan Africa, if, you know, we are willing to go down that route. So thank you, Kola. I hand it back to you.
Many thanks for that, Banji.
Yeah, no problem.
Everybody's just been given, you can see in the chat window, the high fives are there. Everybody's been, you know, positive feedback, and I'm happy to see that personally. So now we're at the stage where what's going to happen is this. We have a bunch of questions. So for a second, I'm just going to mute all the panelists. So I just run through what we're going to go through real quick right here. So as pointed out earlier on, the whole premise of this is engagements, is discussions, is sharing ideas, and a lot of us are aware of the problems. The problems are not alien to us, but what we need to do is pull together local knowledge and be able to find cost-effective solutions so that projects can even be able to kick off from the start. So you can look at it from the OPEX perspective, which is very, very good. However, if the, you know, and I, you know, go back to the slide I presented earlier from Deloitte. If the cost of doing business is too expensive, then I'm sorry, you will get left behind. So we need, as engineers, to remember the reason why we became engineers in the first place. We are innovators. We are innovators, and the challenge has to start from within. If we, as a culture, wait for the challenge to start from the top, we're all going to have gray hairs by the time the change comes. The change has to come from within. And maybe this might sound like a little rant, but here it is anyways. I think it's time we start reminding the world who Nigerians really are. I think it's time. I think it's time we actually make considered efforts to remind everybody who we really are, not what they think we are. Man, they're not braced for what is about to come. I believe the challenge is here, and we will embrace it, and God willing, we'll be able to find cost-effective solutions for the problems or for the challenges that face Sub-Saharan Africa. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pop on the screen. I've collated all the questions that I've seen so far. If there are more questions, please keep them coming. So we have Shay. Obviously, I'm aware that you're in Abu Dhabi and it's late, so we'll try and just speed it up because some of these questions, I believe you might be able to pick them up. I'm going to read. Just 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. Okay. All right. I hope everybody can see this. So we had So these are the questions anyways. And so one of the questions was directed at Bamiro. And Bamiro, can you hear me? Femi?
I can hear you.
All right. So I'm highlighting this question from Mohammed. The question is directed towards you. So can you speak on this whilst the rest of us start having thoughts in our head on how best to respond to Dipos questions, to Idealist questions, and I think there was a third question. Oh, snap! Sorry, I forgot to put the name of the individual who put this question in there, because this question number 7 is actually very, very important. Please just pop your name in the chat window so that we will refer to you, so we give credit where credit is due. Bamiro, can you take this on and speak on this, please?
Okay, thank you very much. And the question there is true. Most of the time, the supply chain does on the bid so that they can get the job. It's not only the supply chain that does it, big EPC companies do that as well, and they run into trouble. What you find is some of the big EPC companies that have been humble enough to say, this is what we think, and we're not playing games with this. They've lost some jobs, but what you find is the client goes to the cheap guy. A couple of years down the line, they realize that we've really cocked this up. But with digitalization, what will happen is that you don't only present your cost, you present your cost based on the data why it should be so. Everything we've talked about still boils down to where there is transparency. The data that backs up what you're providing is so solid that the client has a difficult decisions to make. What happens when you put a price together is you put a price together based on a lot of norms. Norms has inside of it an awful lot of assumptions. So what you have is that you're pricing for a lot of things. The unknowns are so much. But where digitalization brings you the information, it has from it data that backs you up from a very long time. It brings it up to date as to where and the source of your data, and this is transparent. The client will have a decision to make. Do we go with with you guys? You might be slightly expensive, but the chances that we're going to go on a blowout is very slim, or we'll do business as usual. But because we can't continue to do business as usual, the chances are high that transparency will call for the guys who provide the best data to back up their price. When it comes to claims, indeed, how you how you use digitalization to avoid claims, I think we will see claims reduce, because what increases claims when your change management is very poor. But when your change management is backed up with good data, is real time, is submitted in a way that it's very easy for the client or for whoever your client is in the supply chain to look at it, the chances are high that you want to deal with that real time. Now, lastly, because we're talking about the fact that cost margins are going to be cutthroat, nobody will want to get into a situation where they go into claims, an awful lot. The truth is, claim consultants are very expensive, and the time they use for 2-3 years to deal with that, they won't want that. So, in the interest of the client as well, they want to reduce some of the claims that they'll be getting on the jobs. And I think when we have a holistic approach to this, and this will probably reduce as we go further, because as long as we're not playing business as usual, it will work. I mean, I've seen businesses tell you that we lost a job, but we're very humbled by the fact that we lost it. We have no regrets. I think that would be my response to that.
Thank you for that, Femi. So I can sort of tell the general direction of some of the questions that are coming in, because let's remember the particular emphasis is on Sub-Saharan Africa. So what I'm going to do, I had a backup slide which I was either going to present or not present based on how we're doing for time, and I'm going to present it now, and hopefully it sort of answers a few of the questions that have been coming in as far as what can be done. Because the reality is we need to create an enabling environment for business to be able to thrive in Africa. That means we need to be able to find cost-effective solutions that attract investors. Once investors come in, things will be more affordable for them to be able to be able to, so basically we are talking about embracing the tools of, embracing digital tools to be able to make, to help our clients make better informed decisions. So I'm going to run through this slide for just approximately a minute or two. It's going to be real quick, so just bear with me one sec. Okay, so a few of the guys had already touched on things that are within this slide. So I titled this slide Digital Passports, and essentially it ties into what a lot of the guys have been saying. Now, I would segue into digital passports from my perspective as an engineer, as a design engineer. Now, within the oil and gas space, I wear many hats. The biggest hat I happen to wear right now is as a design engineer. And my primary focus is EMEA regions, as Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And over the last 9 years of my career, my focus has been mainly on conceptual studies and pre-feeds. In fact, I would say probably 80% conceptual studies. So I get to see a lot, reasons why projects do not even start up in the first place. So before you even get to the OPEX side of it, the reasons why operators just say, you know what, it's not economically viable. And I'll put it to you this way. Somebody asked the question, how can we relate this information to Nigeria? And how is this relatable? So imagine, first of all, a design house here in London being approached by an entity in Nigeria to say, come and design this pipeline for us. Now, because we don't have a data pool of how of systems in Nigeria, we don't have okay, let me not say we don't have. If we do have, I stand corrected, which segues into the questions I put up before. Do we have these standards? Are these standards aligned with modern day technology, etc.? So if I, as an individual, am asked to design a system for a local community in Africa, if I don't have cultural knowledge or knowledge of what is obtainable on ground, I have to make assumptions. And I'll speak on assumptions and safety factors because these margins are quite slim. So, as I mentioned before, my what I mainly do is within the conceptual study area. Safety factors. Now, engineers, we're all aware of safety factors. Now, have you asked yourself though, what was the basis of this safety factor? How did it come about? The way engineering is moved, the direction towards engineering is moving is towards cost optimization. And we are starting to challenge a lot of these safety margins because they were just handed down. Questions need to be asked. What was the basis for the safety margin? I'll give you a typical example. So imagine a pipe, a diameter, wall thickness. The costing of a pipe is usually per ton, cost per ton. And aside from the actual procurement cost per ton, you also have shipping cost. It costs more to shift a heavier pipe than a lighter pipe. So you can see all through the chain, the way owners of oil and gas assets start incurring costs from the get-go, So imagine this. Now I'm designing a pipe, assuming the wall thickness is supposed to be 1 inch, and that is the stress limit. We're now being challenged as engineers and innovators to say, do you know what, manufacturers, can you improve the chemistry? Can you improve the serviceability of this asset so that I can be able to stretch it from that stress limit into the strain limit? Now, we all have our backgrounds from physics and mechanical engineering from back in uni. We know our stress strain curves. I'm not going to go into that. Do you know that, as one of the speakers mentioned, imagine a 1,500 kilometer pipeline, cross-country pipeline, and you are able, because of optimized solutions and local information for that particular community, be able to save an inch every joint of pipe across 1,500 kilometers. Do you know what that means? Do you know what savings that transcends to as far as procurement, just procurement alone? Then you have the freight, the shipping of that particular asset to site. When you get to site, you now have the lay rates. The lay rates, this is talking about the handling capabilities of that pipe, because the heavier it is, the slower it is to install. So say, for instance, you were typically installing based on 200 meters per day. Because it's so heavy and so difficult to handle, your lay rate now reduces to 100 meters a day. Then you have your welding. Your welding processes take longer. Aside from that, if the pipe is up to a certain thickness, you now have to do post, PWHT. The materials guys will tell you all about that. That's a whole slew of qualification processes again. Now you come to the equipment hire, because a lot of the contractors that you even get to put on site, they don't own this equipment. A lot of them do not own these vessels, they lease them. The longer these vessels, this equipment are on site, the more cost you're incurring. And the reason why is because the lay rate is piling up. System redundancy. Because I, as a design engineer and other design engineers, are struggling to find information about assets in Nigeria that have been previously designed, so that we can see the trends, we can study the trends and use intelligent probabilistic analysis to come up with informed solutions to be able to give our clients not cheaper designs, but cost optimized designs. We save them money. When you save them money, you've created an enabling environment for them to do business. And this is just me, one person, 0.1% in the whole cog of the machine. So when we start talking about, oh, what are they going to do? The question is, what are you going to do? You need to start pushing yourself as an engineer. How can I help my clients save money? And to be honest with you, if you want to become a valuable asset to any organization, you need to start thinking along these lines. And hopefully this answers a few questions, but that was just the presentation I wanted to run through real quick. So I'll pop the questions back on the screen. So am I still sharing my screen? I think not. I think not. Let me share again. So where are the questions? Oh, come on, look at that. I think I've lost the questions for some reason. But anyways, what will happen is, because I'm getting the prompts that we're out of time. Totally sorry about that, but we're going to be kicked off very soon. Now, we have about 5 minutes to just round this up real quick. We're hoping that this is a first in a series of webinars. The idea is we'll have one every month, and what we are aiming to do here is have interactive sessions. We encourage anyone who's been a part of this, if you have any subject areas. Now, digitalization is just one subject area. It could be any subject area within the oil and gas space. I personally have something close to my heart, which segues into decarbonization, which I'm hoping to share in the next presentation. What I encourage each and every one of us is anything close to your heart that you feel you want to share, because remember, it's a knowledge sharing platform first. First and foremost, it's a knowledge sharing platform. No man is an island. We all want to come together so that we are able to be better informed on how to make cost-effective decisions for our own communities. So for you guys out there watching us, listening to us, we thank you for being a part of this. Please, we encourage as much feedback as possible. And by the way, the next session, it might not be any of us on here doing the presentation. We will actually be on the other side of things, and you guys will be here. It's not an individual thing, it's a platform thing, and all are welcome. All are very, very welcome. So right now, we're gonna do closing credits. So I'm gonna leave for the guys to just have a minute. If you wanna do shout outs, if you wanna give credit to anybody, or you just wanna say thank you, this is the opportunity. So we'll start in the direction we started initially. So Debola, I'm gonna mute myself and you just have a minute to do your closing credits.
Thanks, Kola. I think it's a great idea what we're trying to do here. We don't know exactly where it's going next, as you mentioned, but I think the key is if you don't start, then you never actually get anywhere. So lots of great questions asked around where is this going to, how do we start to take practical steps? And I think we definitely need to think in that way. So again, thanks again for the opportunity to take part in this, and I hope we can start to build on this and actually do more in the future. I know there were a few questions in the chat boxes which we haven't been able to get to. So if people want to get in touch or connect on LinkedIn, etc., we can try and answer a few of those questions in other forums or find other ways of getting answers to you. But thanks to everyone again for attending, and thanks for your patience, even though we've kind of run over time.
Thank you for that, Debola. Aristo, you're going to be going next, so I'm going to mute myself, and please give your closing credits.
Okay. I think this is just a beautiful concept to come together to share knowledge and how best we can improve ourselves as Nigerians. And every opportunity to build, every opportunity to save cost, every opportunity to make life better for people and ourselves, I think will go a long way to be a blessing. NETCO NNPC has a lot of desires to improve on its operations. And I'm confident that with this, we'll get a number of participants coming in from time to time. Just remain positive in all that we do. And just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and good night.
Okay, thank you for that, Risto. Femi, closing credits.
I just want to say thank you, obviously, for the forum to start with. The beauty about this is not just the fact that you can give, is the fact that you can receive as well. And I think one thing we've taken from tonight is let us, keep our eye on the box, and let's keep our eye on what Kolapo said in closing. Cost optimization will drive culture, and it might be new, but as long as we're fluid and we're ready for change, I think we'll all be fine. It tells us again that, let's just remind that we're very resilient people, and we're resilient to change. Most of us are economic migrants, and I know very much that we're up to the task. In closing, I just want to say thank you, keep well, and keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Femi. Sheyi, closing credits.
Okay, thank you, Kolapo. I think the first thing I would say is thank you for this initiative. Thank you for putting this together, and I think it's awesome. I'm a bit of a passionate Nigerian, so I think we're a bunch of talents outside of Nigeria. So I don't know how much we think about the country, but we cannot afford to leave that country that way. In one way or the other, we all must strive to go back, not to go back physically if you don't want to, but at least your talent should be able to add to the development of the country as a whole. So I just encourage us to keep up and make sure we have a contact over there in any way we can help out. We should always be ready to do the same. And I think just like you said, it will be awesome for us to continue this like you propose monthly, and for different speakers to be able to come up with different stuff to talk about, and also to improve our networking ability as well. So thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity as well.
Thank you for that, Sheyi. Banji, closing credits.
Yeah, thanks a great deal, Kolap and Femi, because I got pulled into this kind of last minute and quickly put together something. So it was took a bit of big ideas and quick search to be able to put it together. And a big thank you to the other people, the other panelists, and most importantly, the other attendees, because you guys were patient enough to wait till the very end to listen to all we have to say. Like everyone has said also, I'm very open to seeing where this goes, with regards to different topics, but most importantly, how best we can try to, it's not just all about talking, but actually actualizing and, making it happen. trying to see how best we can, help out the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, because the sad thing is that most of the people running it are either not the right technocrats, and most importantly, quite a number of old people who just see it as a cash cow. But if we come up with new ideas, and how best we think we can make it work in Nigeria, I think it's the way to go. We've seen it loads of times in the Middle East, because I have firsthand experience with regards to the Middle East. They didn't have anything as at the 80s, the 70s, and see where they are, especially Saudi, going all digital, UAE going all digital. What stops Nigeria from doing the same? So, how best we can, transform the ideas into an actual, project or way to go, then, is the way forward in my idea. But the other thing on the side is, if anyone is interested in my slides, please do let me know. It's a good 30-feet high level with regards to what we think the digital community should be with regards to upstream and midstream. So, it's just a good QC, just good idea, just good one for everyone to have an idea that, okay, this is where we should be going, in the future. So happy to share it with anyone and, link up with people on LinkedIn, questions and all that. So thanks a great deal again, Colin, Femi.
Thank you for that, Banji. As you all probably see on the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner of the screen, this session is actually being recorded. The video is available on demand, so we can make reference to it so that you guys as well can share it. So please, anybody interested in having a video that they want to watch back or share with their friends or share with colleagues, the only thing we're saying for now is, because we want to drive the focus towards Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa, we want to keep all of this within our space. We want to be able to challenge our own engineers. I'm glad, I think I saw a question earlier where someone said, something that we can create. So maybe some of you know the acronym FUBU from a clothing line in America back in the 90s, for us, by us. And that's essentially what we're trying to, the type of narratives we're trying to push here. So many thanks again for everybody joining us. COVID-19 times, man, look at where we are. See, who says we're not innovators as engineers and as Nigerians? In the midst of all of this, we still come together for a common objective. And I believe at this point, the mountain will need to come to Muhammad. If I can just borrow that a little bit. I believe what we do here, we need to be able to present it in good video format, audible format, with good technical content, and be the change that we so desire. All right, I don't want to ramble on, and I'll let you guys get back to your busy weekends. Much love, blessings all around, and hopefully we see you guys this time next month. Thank you, and good night.